Hi Martin, I thought I'd respond to your letter to Richard Dawkins, as I know he's a busy man, and maybe somebody ought to answer your letter. Maybe he will. It's always a bit embarrassing to say that somebody sort of falls into a class of people that that we've heard it all before, and it doesn't make much sense. And that's what you are, Martin. You're a typical faith head, and your arguments, they're not arguments, your reasons, which are not reasons, are an expression of your true emotion that you feel about your religion. It's a dependency that you have, and it's tough to sort of knock the pegs out of someone, but everything that you've said is based on biblical justifications. You know, when you say the reason for this is, well, Luke 17 blah de blah. Well, I'm sorry, to rational people that doesn't really make much of an argument. And then some of the things that you say, aside from the raw emotion of your affection for religion, I'm not going to sway any sort of rationalist. Your arguments about how charity is something which is highly religious, is based on religious kind of belief, doesn't play out to be the truth either. Many of the so-called charitable things that religious people do are strings attached kind of behaviors that don't really earn very much respect. You know, you find people doing something in Africa to help poor people for religious reasons, and then you find the same people are denying those African people assistance in protecting themselves from AIDS, because the way that they have to do it, which is prophylactics, which are the only usable method of these people protecting themselves, are against religious dogma. So you'd rather see them die. When somebody does charitable work with religious intent, well, perhaps it taps a natural human kindness that exists in all human beings. But also, of course, there's the rather comforting thing for the religious person that there's going to be this celestial payoff for them, or perhaps even the threat that if they don't do something that's charitable, they might not really be able to get up through the pearly gates. Well, you find people who are agnostic or atheistic doing marvelous charitable work with no strings attached, and they do it because they're truly altruistic, and they know they're not going to get any payback. You look at organizations like Médecins Sans Frontières, and these are totally not religious people who are doing something out of real charity. You talk about the marvels of seeing people who suffer because of persecution, and the purity of these people, that they're suffering religious persecution, and yet they hold this marvelous faith in their religion. Well, who's doing the persecution? It's just a different group of religious people with a different religion. And when the shoe's on the other foot, the people of your religion are persecuting somebody else. I live here in the UK, and the whole history of the UK is of religious warfare, religious persecution, burnings, beheadings, Catholics and Protestants in particular, and untold hundreds of thousands of people butchered for religious reasons. The Jews burned in York because of religious hatred, and there's nothing good in that persecution, and there's nothing pure in taking that persecution. And what does it all prove? It just proves that religion is an awful thing. your beliefs are not rational. Your beliefs are fossilized in a past. You're crediting this all-loving God is nothing but wishful thinking. If you look at the reality of evil in the world, you cannot explain a compassionate God with that. When the tsunami hit in Southeast Asia, 75,000 children, innocent children's lives were taken. Where's your all-powerful, compassionate, all-loving God? You want this father image. You want this comforter. You're afraid of dying. You're afraid of your children facing the difficulties of this world. But there's no point in living in fairyland, and you ought to really make something of your own life, knowing that you're the one who's responsible for it and nobody's going to be paying you back for it. You'll never convince a rational person with the kind of arguments you've given. And then when you accuse rationalists of being cold and not having the ability to feel love, not having the ability to feel wonder, well, that's a lie. As a matter of fact, the more you understand science, the more you understand the reality of this amazing, amazing world that we live in, which comes through atheism and science, the greater your feeling is about how lucky we are to be here and how marvelous the world is around us. If you want to find a good explanation of the passion and the enjoyment of life that can exist for a rational person, I'd suggest again good old Richard Dawkins. He expresses these things so well. So I'd suggest the next book you read after The God Delusion, which sadly didn't make you see any sense. But I'd read then Unweaving the Rainbow by Dawkins, and also see that how enjoyable life is and how rich life is for us atheists. Thanks.